It is that time of the season. We have just had pre-season testing, F1 is only 1 week away, and well, F1 Fantasy, hello? Anyone home? But it is, without a doubt, time for Zach GP's prediction. And I'm going to be bringing you some of my hottest takes for the season, Drivers' Championship winner, Constructors' Championship winner, biggest surprise of the season, and more all in this video. So if you like what you see, make sure to stick around for the full video, like and subscribe as we're so close to 2,000 subs, and it would make my, well, I guess month if we got to it at the end of March, as that's what I'm aiming for. But anyway, let's get straight into it. So we'll start off with the 3 hot takes, and my first one has to be that there are going to be more than 6 drivers winning a race. Now, of course, the drivers who I expect to win, both McLarens, both Ferraris, Verstappen and Russell, but with Lawson in that Red Bull, with Kimi Antonelli in that Mercedes, don't write them off just yet. We'll see if they can. But more realistically, I'm thinking there's going to be at least one chaotic race this season where we could see a Williams or an Alpine win, which would be incredible. And I did just go over this race, but the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix, you'll see once the grid gets a lot closer at the end of a regulations, if you get a race like that, it does open up a lot of room for the smaller teams to win, and I expect that to happen. So there's going to be more than 7 drivers winning, almost half the grid. Very excited to see if that happens. Then the second take is sort of a lukewarm take these days, but I didn't expect Williams to be so fast in pre-season testing, but I'm not going to back down. I'll probably make it top 4 now, but it's Carlos Sainz to get, well, it was a top 5 result in that Williams at least once. I'll say top 4 now, because it's still going to be hard for him to do that. You'd still have to have basically McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull all having a day off, and that is a top 8 covered, and it's going to be really hard to get into that. But also, I was putting the top 5 thinking Williams were going to be like the 7th, 8th fastest car. They might still be, but at the minute it looks like they could be the 5th or 6th fastest car. And then finally on the hot takes, we have my hot take for the Constructors, which is your big 4 in no particular order, as you know, I'll get to the Constructors Championship in a second. Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren are all going to be within 125 points of each other. So first to fourth, 125 points. Now that might seem like a biggish buffer, but considering how tight the season was last season and McLaren had a 200 point gap to Mercedes, I think that's pretty reasonable. But I really do think there's going to be some big results from big names in those teams, with drivers having to step up, rookies trying to prove their worth. It's going to be such a massive season, and I think there's going to be a lot of crashes between driver championship fights. There might be enough room for Mercedes and Red Bull to keep close enough. And also, it's bloody Verstappen and Red Bull. You can't even write them off. But yeah, those are my hot takes for this season. Comment down below what your hot take is for this season. And now let's get into the meat of this video, because this is the drivers and the constructors and the pole positions. So we'll start off with the pole positions. For me, who is going to get the most pole positions in the 2025 season? Not Lando Norris, not Oscar Piastri, that McLaren's better on the long pace, not George Russell, his qualifying pace is brilliant, but Mercedes is too on and off from what we've seen. Not going to be Verstappen, not going to be Lawson, and it's not going to be Antonelli. For me, it's one of the Ferrari boys, and it's not Hamilton, it's Charles Leclerc. It's because he's probably the most consistent qualifier and a top runner at the minute, because the McLaren boys can have their days off as well, and also Hamilton, it wasn't his forte really in qualifying, it was very much his race result. And we've seen a lot of times where Leclerc can really do something special on the Saturday in a car that shouldn't be there. I mean, his poles to win conversion is dreadful because of that reason. And that's why I think he's going to get it. But sadly, spoiler alert for the Drivers' Championship, which I'll get onto now, he's not winning that. The Drivers' Championship. This one is really hard to get down on a video, because no matter what you say, people aren't going to agree with it. And I'm going to be completely honest, it all comes down to who you are biased for on the grid. Now, you could say, oh, there's statistic this, statistic that. Pre-season testing is just not good enough to go off who's going to win the season. And 2024 results, the cars have gotten a lot faster, even just from 2024 to 2025. So even those are a little bit scuffed. I think you'll know where this is going. That is why I have gone for Lando Norris to win the 2025 Drivers' Championship. Now, I do have a few little stats in my head. Of course, McLaren, the most consistent top runner at the end of 2024. Lando Norris won in Abu Dhabi 2024. Normally, who wins in Abu Dhabi does go on to do well the next season, winning the championship. But like I said, all of those are sort of, they don't really matter at the minute. I can't lie to you. It is generally just because I want Norris to win. and I think he's going to do it. And that's going to be the exact same thing for whoever you ask between a McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull or Mercedes fan. Maybe not Mercedes, but a Red Bull fan's going to tell you Verstappen's going to do it. Ferrari fan, well, it could be either of their drivers, and same with McLaren, either of their drivers as well. But for me, Oscar Piastri, he's going to get closer to Lando Norris, but he's not going to overtake him this season. It's 2026, hopefully if McLaren got a good car, that Oscar Piastri could put up a very good fight and actually outclass Lando Norris. So then moving on to the Constructors, and again, this one slightly different. I do think you can sort of go off a bit more of a trend on the stats on who's going to win it. So for me, McLaren winning the Constructors Championship, they just seem to suit each track most consistently. Like, they obviously had their better tracks, which their car was much more suited to. But Mercedes, you had one track where they'd be so much faster than everyone else, then it'd be the fourth fastest car. McLaren, even at tracks realistically, bar Vegas, I would say, every track they weren't good at, technically, like going for the win, like let's say Kota, maybe not Kota, they were pretty good there as well. They would at least be fighting for the podiums, which you can't say the same for the rest of the Constructors, which is why I think, especially in a Constructors fight where you need consistency, no reliability issues and no crashes. And McLaren have been doing them pretty well so far in 2024, and their preseason testing, I'm not even going to go into that, but McLaren, for me, they go there. But anyway, that is the juicy bit of the video. Comment down below who you think is going to get all of those. I think pole position a lot of people will agree on me with. But drivers and Constructors, it's going to be very biased basically to whatever I know for a fact. And don't even try to hide it in the comments. It's just going to be who you're biased towards. But now we get on to the dessert, the big old cherry on top. Now these predictions are quite fun. We'll start off with who is going to win the best of the rest. So that's anyone who's not in the top 4 teams. Who's going to beat them? Well, Williams, Alpine, I'm going to do it for drivers, but you know, Sauber, Bortoleto. No, for me, it's going to be the man who very much impressed me in 2024. And I think he's going to continue that trend going into 2025, potentially hoping to get a better seat in 2026. But it's going to be Pierre Gasly of Alpine. We've seen what he can do at the end of 2024. He just needs to start the season well, and Alpine can't be having reliability issues, as they had quite a few of those last season compared to any other team. But I do think he'll outclass the Williams drivers, and it's just because I'm still not set on Williams being 5th fastest car, and if they are, I don't think Alpine are going to be that far behind. And I also think Pierre Gasly is a very talented driver who could go toe-to-toe, especially with Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz. Now, for the biggest surprise of 2025, I have actually gone with no one else but George Russell. And I'll say why. And it is because, again, new regulations coming in 2026. All of the field is going to get tighter. Means qualifying is going to get so much more important than it was even still in 2024. And we know how good George Russell is on a Saturday, putting that one lap in. Maybe his race pace isn't the best, but sometimes, especially at tracks like Singapore, imagine if he was first place, race pace then doesn't matter. Street circuits, there's a lot of places on F1 that it's hard to overtake. So if you're just in first place and your car is still like the 3rd or 4th fastest car, considering how close it will be, I think that might be enough to get him a few wins and really carry Mercedes this season. Now, Kimi Antonelli, no shit to him, but it's more of a development season for him. And that's also why I think it will be the top 4 and not the top 3. Because I do think George Russell will outscore one of the McLaren or Ferrari drivers. I'm that adamant that this is the season where he's got to be the team leader. Lewis Hamilton ain't there anymore. And that's exactly what he's going to do. I mean, even just take his points from 2024. If you add on Spa, which he was very unlucky to lose, and he did deserve the 25 points, he'd be on 270, which is dangerously close to Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri in the McLaren and Ferrari. So it really isn't that far off for me to be saying he could be beating one of them. Now, I know it would either be Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc in Ferrari, which is crazy, and even Oscar Piastri. But again, over a season, if any one of them has some issues or just loses confidence because one of their teammates is doing so well and they just can't keep up with them, that's where George Russell swoops in. Now, I'm hoping he becomes a little bit less insufferable so I can hope for him to do this. But at the minute, I'm sort of going to be grinding my teeth for this because I think it's going to happen. But why does it have to be him? And then finally, for the final prediction of the 2025 season, who is going to be the worst driver on the grid? And I actually think this driver normally would be a cop-out in earlier seasons of F1. But because of how many people are so hyper-focused on Duan or Hadjar, I think he's gone under the radar, and we need to make sure that he remembers just how bad he is in F1, and that is obviously Aston Martin's Lance Stroll. I think if Aston Martin really aren't the 5th or 6th fastest car on the grid, as we saw for a lot of the end of the 2024 season, he's going to struggle to get out of the bottom 4 most Grand Prix weekends. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. So keep an eye out on Lance Stroll. He's going to be even worse, potentially. Maybe. We'll see what Hadjar and Duan could do. But for me, everyone's forgetting just how bad Lance Stroll can be. And if he's not got that Aston Martin helping him, he's not doing it. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. This was more of a laid-back video. I do like doing these videos where I just talk my mind about F1. But comment down below what you thought about my predictions and put any of your predictions for the upcoming season in 2025. I can't tell you how excited I am for this season. I've got so many fun videos coming out. My camera's almost about to die. But obviously everything you need to know about F1 Fantasy. I'm going to be probably, whenever F1 Fantasy does some stuff, I'll be doing some stuff over at FanAmp. There's going to be the live stream at FanAmp. There's going to be more videos on here, maybe a what if or another historic race. I'm just excited for F1 to be back. See you all later. Take care.